for being here. Do we have any public comment on the agenda items? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to move to the next item, which is nomination and election of board officers.
Yes. Noel, I'd like to motion to nominate and elect board officers and allow them to continue in their current positions.
Second.
I have a point of order, Noel, I just wanted to raise.
Sure.
According to our bylaws, our annual meeting is supposed to happen the third Thursday at 2 o'clock of December. And that's where elections are supposed to happen. And I just wanted to know why we're deviating for that, and if we are, are there any ramifications of that?
To my knowledge, there are no ramifications of that, and we deviate from time to time with all these meetings based on availability of people. That's my understanding. Frank or Michael, do you have any other?
That's correct. The bylaws specifically suggest that as a date of the meeting, but there's also a provision, like there is with the other meetings, that says if other meetings make this meeting not schedulable, the annual meeting shall be held on the next soonest business day. This is the closest business day to the unavailability, which will happen on Friday. So this is a proper meeting. It's been properly advertised. There's nothing wrong with having the meeting today, and it's in compliance with the bylaws. This question was raised and answered at our last executive session, I think, or in informational session. So.
Well, I don't understand where it says that in the annual. It seems really specific, and I don't want to be. I'm just asking. It says it's real specific. There's no the other meetings, regular meetings. It says that you can make adjustments. With the annual meeting, it's super specific. Third Thursday.
I'm reading from the annual meeting section 1, page 16.
Right.
Or if other reasons make this meeting not schedulable, the annual meeting shall be held on the next soonest business day. That's today. It allows participation of a board quorum. That's today. It could also be tomorrow. It could be Wednesday, or it could be Thursday. But today's the soonest day that we can get the most people here. So that's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Can I add something? I guess when we were looking for a date, that third, excuse me, the third Thursday in December was a conflict for the board members. Am I
Several.
So therefore, this
Yes.
was the earliest that we could have it
Yes,
in order not to go out into the new year.
correct. I mean, look, you guys have busy schedules. Not everybody's here at every meeting. This is not the first meeting that we have rescheduled. What we try to do is get the most people here for the meetings. And Michael or someone from his office always checks when there's people that are not able to be here. So that was done. It's in full compliance with the bylaws, these specific bylaws, Section 1, Article 3 meetings.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, I think item 4 was, there was a motion and a second.
Question. Based on the information that I shared, the letter, I don't have it in front of me. Who did I give it to? I gave it
Yeah, we
to
can
you.
actually do that after.
Yeah, I would do this
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
and then
That's
do
fine.
that.
Okay.
There's a reason for that, and I'll explain that.
Okay.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Brandy,
Yes.
Mr. Herford,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Washburger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was a special parking spot.
I'd just like to thanks for that vote of confidence for the officers that we have. We're in unprecedented times, as everybody knows. There has been nothing like this where we have a water authority that's in a hostile legal environment, and that hostility has expanded well beyond the court. It's also infiltrated various political structures that we have in place. I want everybody to be confident that our officers are doing their level best to make sure that we preserve CWA for its ratepayers and the best interests of its ratepayers. It may seem at times that not everybody's on the same page, but we certainly want to make sure that we're doing all that's right for the organization and do all that we can to continuously improve CWA. It's not a perfect organization, nothing is, no organization is, but every day that we work, we're working towards making the CWA a better place, not only for the staff and the employees, but again for the ratepayers. So thank you very much for that vote. Having said that, we did receive a letter that came from, as you know, Dr. West had an accident, and she's now in recovery and in good spirits. But she did let us know that she would like to resign her position, and therefore that is a vacancy, and we probably should have another nomination for that position. Frank?
Two issues. One is the, to accept the resignation. The person that would fill, or the group that would fill that vacancy would be the City of Chester Council. I don't know when they next meet, but.
Maybe Thursday, it'll be Wednesday night.
Right, so they could fill it then. We should accept it, but it doesn't really have any legal effect until because technically she resigns to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my suggestion is you can either act to fill the vacant office position,
Mm-hmm.
or you wait and see what they do and allow the new member to participate in the voting. So that's up to the board. And we had an officer last year who passed away, Paul Andriel, and we didn't fill his position we didn't fill it all, like seven months out of three.
I mean,
Respect to him, right?
yes,
Right. So this technically is not ours to accept. We can acknowledge the receipt of it, but we don't need to take any action. We didn't appoint her to this board. The City of Chester did. So they would have to fill that vacancy. So we should let them know right away. And Mike and I will take care of that today. So,
relative to officers and.
well, she's an officer as long as she's on board. So she's on the board until they accept her thing.
I got you.
So I mean, you guys
until
can.
then.
Right. I mean, I would just it would seem that you're better off. The bylaw section that I just read to you, what underlies the bylaws is the sense that you try to get the full board to act on anything. You try to get everybody here. So if that's fine with the City of Chester reps, then we should allow the City Council to do what they're going to do with that appointment, and then have that person come in and have all 9 people vote.
Any objections to that?
And that's fine since it's in the hands of the local government.
Right. So we're not accepting this. We're acknowledging it technically.
Okay.
We received this and we'll transmit it to the City Council so that they can act at the earliest opportunity.
Got it.
Okay.
Is she okay as far as we know, Libby?
I saw her, I went to see her last night. She's broken, she's hurt. She's got this halo on her head, and it restricts her movement, and she can't move about, and she says she's not even, even wanting to think, because she has frozen blood on her brain. So, she's with her sister at the moment. I have the address. I think she wanted to send something to the house. It's hard, like you said. One day she was fine, and the next day she was in the state that she's in now.
No, I think we could send her something on behalf of the board, something, some, edibles or food, something, something that would be a nice,
I'm sure Michael could arrange that.
And just to be clear, when she first went to the hospital, we sent flowers and cookies and all that stuff. But now that we know she's somewhere else, we will continue to send her stuff.
I can ask Mrs. Smith it, and if you can just pass it our best to her.
Well, I told her that last night, because I mentioned it at the other meeting.
Yeah.
I told her the board is
Okay.
thinking, but we just didn't know where you were,
Mm-hmm.
other than you moved from the hospital to the Chester
Are
area.
they gonna send her?
And I'll get that address from you later.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
We should think of the profile and encourage the board for some future meeting for participating in the
Oh,
meeting
yeah.
with us 2
That's
days
a
after
good
the
point.
the accident. So we should think about that.
Absolutely.
I think we don't need to actually go to a ad hoc executive session. We'll just move on. Well, we might, depending on what discussion we have in the regular business, but I would suggest that we move on to item number 6, which is a motion to approve the minutes for the November 16th board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herford,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Washburger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item is the action item from the executive session. Since in this particular setting, we are going to have the executive session follow these agenda items. And we didn't have an ad hoc one, so let's just move from that to the solicitor's report, item 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The item for action is 8A, request to approve the confidentiality policy. I had sent that out last week. The vote would be on the policy as sent out with any sort of grammatical or technical changes you point out to us that I need to add as a dash. That's helpful. Thank you. And then I sent out the administrative part of that policy, which was the acknowledgement form. But the policy does not indicate that the acknowledgement form is part of the policy. It's transmittal items. The item before the board is the request to approve the confidentiality policy as transmitted. I think I did that on the 5th of December.
Was there any other feedback other than Mr. Brandon? And I know I had sent some myself. Any other feedback or possible edits?
No. And I didn't get anything from you since the 5th. I got it prior, but not since then.
Discussion point, Chair, related to this policy, I mean, I think it's overly broad and it keeps changing, and I myself would want to have my own attorney review it prior to signing it. I'm uncomfortable signing it as it is. I think it's an overreach and not necessary. So I'll be voting against it for those reasons, subject to my own attorney's review, and but I have concerns about the sweeping nature of it and the necessity of it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm looking at the one from November the 13th. So there's a revised one from November 13th.
The policy that we're voting on now was sent out on December 5th. And it says at the top, today is December 5th.
So based on this one on the 13th, there's some other changes.
Well, there were changes to address some of the concerns that were raised in executive session.
Yeah, I think the key change from my reading was Mr. Washburger had brought up a need to also have employees
Right.
as part of the
Yes.
policy.
And that
So that was all reviewed, all those inputs were reviewed with our council, and they came back with a policy that has those items that we discussed at executive included in the document.
Okay. Now I think I've seen, if I'm not mistaken, 3 different revisions from that. So which one am I looking at? Number 3?
I think this is the most recent one, which incorporated Mr. Washburger's comments.
I didn't look at them all in detail. Because there's so many different versions. Let me just make sure that that's the one I read, because I think there's 3 of them that came. Okay. December 9th? that the one you-
I sent it out on the 5th.
Oh, I think what
Oh,
Mrs.
I
Smith is
said lots,
referring to
lots
is,
of other
there
emails.
there was one document with the confidentiality, and you sent another one, I requested you sent the signature page. But I think you sent that one later.
That was this on the 9th.
That was the ninth, okay.
Yeah, that was the signature page.
And Mr. Herford expressed a desire to review that with council, which is appropriate prior to a signing.
Which one is it? It says 3. That's not it. That's not
No,
it.
no, that's,
That's not it. Is it
I
this
put
one?
out a lot of emails last
No, is
night.
it this one?
that's the last one. That
That's
was
the
on 9. Yeah, look for the
Yeah, that's the 9th here.
Six. Right here? I'm sorry, the date is out, but I didn't know. That was you, and the fifth, and the second. Let me take this out.
So here's the one that went out on the 5th. That's the cover. We just had that policy with it.
Is it this one?
And that's the attachment.
But I've read the different ones, so if it didn't change much from the last one I saw. As long as you not take my notes. You can take the animals. It's going fast.
There's no motion.
And just to be clear, based on Mr. Herford's comment, this is the policy, and certainly it's within everybody's right to have it reviewed with their own personal counsel if they think it's necessary before they sign. Yes, so can I have a motion, please, for item number 8?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herford,
No.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Washburger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The only other items I have is I just wanted to report on there's currently a bill pending in the House of Representatives, there are actually 13 bills dealing with the repeal of Act 12. There's a hearing tomorrow on a packet of bills that Representative Matzi has put out in the Consumer Protection Committee.
He's the chair.
So some of you here have appeared before that committee previously. I'm sad to report that this bill has less in it than Representative Sackey's bill has. So while it's a movement on this issue forward, we were not invited to this session and we were not asked to comment on it. But we will keep tracking it. But since we've been at this, we had 3 bills in 2019-20 session, 4 bills in 21-22 session, and 13 bills in the 23-24 session. Most of these are spearheaded first by Representative Sappy from Chester County and Representative Lawrence. They have been the real spearheads here. So there are a lot more coming into it now, but I can tell that there are a lot of industry people around this bill. I can tell by the change wordsmithing. We will put out a communication, a copy of the board comparing and contrasting all of these different bills. That's all that I have.
Next item is item 9, the Chief Financial Officer's report. There are 5 items there, expenses by function report, the final 2024 operations and maintenance budget for $49,029,000. Item C is a request to approve the 3% salary increase for all full-time and non-union and union employees effective January 1st, 2024. Item D, the final 2024 capital improvement budget of $19,360,000. And item E, request to approve proposal from, I say WSFS, but WSFS for banking services. And that's for changing over the bank that we were dealing with to WSFS. If I can take all those items as one item or one set of items, I'd like to have a motion for those items, items 9A through E.
So move.
Is there a second?
Discussion, Mr. Chair. Could we remove E? I think that's a set, they're all budget related, one's banking related. I think that they don't necessarily go together. So would you amend that motion to just set aside
Do you want to do E separately?
E separately? You don't mind?
We can. Any objections to that? Okay, so we're voting on items 9A through 9B.
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herford,
No.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Washburger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so you heard item 9E is the change of claim from the bank we were using to WSFS.
Do we need a separate motion?
Yeah, yes.
I'll make the motion to approve.
So
Second.
second.
Okay. Discussion.
Yeah, with the change for Whiskers, we're gonna be getting some benefits of having a credit card, am I correct?
That's correct,
Saying that?
yes.
And that benefit will give us, what was the percentage?
We receive 1% on every purchase. We receive 1% back on every purchase made by the credit, with the credit
And that could be approximately, how much money, if we use
Uh,
the
Careful.
Well, we've been
Give you a
reviewing
low
the,
end and
we've been reviewing the vendors, and there's a number of large vendors, where we pay monthly payments over 100,000. And we could definitely use the card and reap the benefit.
Right, so on $100,000 at 1% is what? Testing your math.
You're the math teacher.
I
He's a
That's
teacher.
why I asked the question. Okay,
I
thank you.
really don't want to commit to a number in case.
No, I'm just saying on the low ball, it, for example, like I said, 100,000 times 1% is 1,000, I know. Just want to ask
Mr. Smith, it's
you.
going to be greater than 0.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a good thing, that's more than we had.
Yes,
Thank you, Agnes. for
thank
that.
you.
And I've worked with Agnes on, on the budget and all the, some other committee members. We've been on target with what we need. And hopefully, we won't have to use, some line items to the extent that we budgeted for.
Here we had some good teams.
Okay, I think we had a motion and a second for item 9E.
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herford,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Washburger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item is the Director of Engineering report, that's item 10 on the agenda. There are several items there. 9A are for contracts for the treatment plant SCADA system, furnishing construction for trade services, the 2024 water main renewal project, and also getting bids on reservoir destratification system. And that's all part of making the Octoraro source water as good as we can make it with current technology. Item B is to award contract for furnishing and delivery powdered activated carbon. Item C is proposal from AECom for the Pine Grove Dam Security Assessment. And item D is a change order for the PCCP Pipeline Integrity Plan, Phase 1A. May I have a motion for items 10A through D, please?
So moved.
Second, but I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, on that change order, going from,
You're talking 10D.
make sure I'm looking at that, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Mhm.
When you bidded it out for this particular contract, does that 10% exceed what the next bid was?
Mr. Caruso?
I don't know that off the top of my head. But all of the work that's covered in that change order was additional work that was not envisioned in the original scope, so any other contractor that would come in would have to have change orders as well to do the additional work. And these are just unanticipated conditions, you know, we're dealing with stuff that's underground, and just came along with the work as we were going through.
Right, because I guess when you see certain things on the surface and when you get into the actual project itself, you can see that there's some changes that necessarily have to be done
Correct.
in order for it to be a full, good project.
Yeah, one of the last ones that comes to mind is we had a bad storm out there and found out that a lot of water was rushing into one of the vaults. So we had to then add some bentonite and mixture to make it a waterproof vault so we wouldn't have water getting in there every time it rained.
Okay.
So it's not something envisioned in the design when you get out to the field visions and the changes.
Mother Nature can do that too. Thank you.
Did you have to rebid it?
No.
Can I ask a question on the ACOM security assessment?
Sure.
So the office memorandum says that we have to do the assessment every 10 years. But then the background, I guess, from ACOM says that we have to do a security assessment annually. And the most recent one was the end of 2021, I guess. So is it annually, is it every 10 years? Do we do something else?
Both. So there is an internal one we do every year.
Okay.
I'm actually doing that next week or two for this year. But it's a self-assessment. But the AECOM's job for this is to come in, take a look at everything, and do a holistic view from a third-party perspective on our security.
And that's the one that has to be every 10 years?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions?
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herper,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Walshberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11, the executive manager's report. There are 3 items there. The first is the request to approve the proposal from Tech Guides for the renewal of annual on-call professional services associated with technology consulting. Item B is the 2024 monthly board meeting dates. And item C is the annual renewal of subscription to the Water Research Foundation for 2024. I'd like to have a motion for all of those 3 items, if there's no objection to that.
Can we carve out the meeting dates? I'm just wondering about the time of day related to those meetings.
Okay. So we're going to be entertaining a motion then on item 11A and 11C.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herper,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Walshberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So the remaining item is item 11B. Maybe, Michael, can you just share how that's put together,
So typically,
just for the,
yeah, so typically the board meetings are the 3rd Thursday a month at 2 p.m., thing like that, as far as I know. But when there is conflicts, either holiday conflicts or board member conflicts, we have to make changes sometimes. So that's the basic process that we go through.
So, looking at the dates, it looks like there are 2 dates that are not consistent with the 3rd Thursday. So
Yeah,
that
I
would
believe
be
it's
the
May
March.
March and May.
and May.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And I know we have the holiday in May, so that would make sense. And it looks like the December meeting is before the holiday season, next year, so it looks like that should work. But, okay, thank you.
And just to point out that's our best view right now. Things happen that we don't have any control of, and we have the flexibility to make changes to accommodate as many of the board members as possible. Any other discussion on item 11B?
Just relate, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
That should be part of the process, shouldn't it?
I'm sorry?
It should be a part of the process, shouldn't
Yeah, I mean, that's what our bylaws basically gives us that flexibility.
And just related to the, I'm okay with the dates, but just maybe we can have a future discussion. I know this is in our bylaws about the time of day. It's tough if you're working to get down here at 2 and we're doing an executive session in the middle of the day. And I would just like to plant a seed that maybe we nudge the meetings later in the coming year. And I know we need to discuss that, but for a 4 o'clock start, executive session at 3 o'clock, it's just, I know we have a mixture of some people who are working full-time, some part-time, some retired, so it's just tough for those of us who are working to jump out of our seats at 11:30 and drive here and be here for 2 or 3 hours sometimes. So just, I know the times are on there. That's in our bylaws. That would be an amendment to bylaws, but just like to plant that seed for future discussion. And I don't know if that resonates with anybody else, but it's tricky.
Any other?
A question, not about this particular one, but about holidays. Are we to approve holidays on a yearly basis, or that's a given?
There's a separate policy that already has the approved holidays.
And I think it's in the union contract.
And the union contract.
Okay, so it's already set.
Yeah, it's already set, yeah.
All right, so I'd like to have a motion for item 11B, 2024 monthly board meeting dates.
So moved.
it? Second.
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herford,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Walshberger. Yes. Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, moving on to item 12, old business. Do we have any old business at this time? None. Do we have any new business? Hearing none. Moving on. Any public comment on other matters? Yes.
My name is Catherine Miller. I live in Oxford, PA. I'm here on behalf of some ratepayers. There was a ratepayer from Parkside, Elizabeth Seltzer, who was not able to be here today, but she recently had a op-ed published in the Daily Times. I brought copies for the board members, so you guys can read that. And she asked me to read some comments. She's out of the country today, otherwise she would have been here. So she asked me to read some comments to the board, which I'd like to do now. Who
She didn't hear your name.
Oh, my name's Catherine Miller, but I'm reading a letter on behalf of Elizabeth Seltzer, who lives in Parkside. I live in Oxford. I live in Oxford. I drink Chester Water County water. I pay my bill through the borough. But, and I also help organize the Safe CWA effort.
Can you have something from somebody from Parkside?
Yes.
Give it in.
Yes, she emailed it to me to send to you guys. She wasn't here today. She's out of the country.
Just want to make sure I understand it.
Yes. So this is an article that her op-ed letter that got published in the Daily Times, and she also asked me to read the separate remarks to the board. I've spent much of my life in the third world. I've actually spent quite a bit of my life carrying water, not a situation I was brought up for in Delaware County. This gives me a very visceral understanding of the importance of water that few people here share. Over the years, particularly since we started fracking in PA, in the relatively recent but completely game-changing past, I have watched our water quality degrade as it becomes increasingly expensive. Aqua's takeover of suburban water, in particular, was a startling change, but just about this time I moved to Parkside and I was surprised and very pleased to notice both the difference in water and the water bill, because of course she's Chester Water Authority customer. As our resources everywhere become endangered from so many directions, access to community water becomes more and more important. The chronic economic woes of Chester will be mildly and very temporarily eased if you allow this dangerous company to take over. But the true worth of the asset of CWA is in the future, as access to good water becomes more and more challenging. There's a very important movie that came out some years ago and is even more relevant now called Water Wars, and it would be my suggestion that it were required viewing for anyone dealing with the business of water. I've personally experienced some of the scenes depicted in this excellent and interesting movie and can attest to the significance of this crisis. We give so much weight to the importance of money, but when push comes to shove, money has no real value. You can't eat it, you can't burn it for heat, you certainly can't drink it. Long after the Band-Aid repair that the loss of CWA will offer, we will be paying for this loss in real time, and it will only get worse as time passes. In a time when short-term gain is about the only thing our officials seem to recognize, please take the time to consider our children and grandchildren, 7 generations, as the native cultures say, or even 1 generation at this point. I implore you to save the treasure that is CWA for our own good and the good of our planet. Thank you for your time. Elizabeth Seltzer. And I also want to state that several ratepayers and myself are going to Harrisburg tomorrow to listen to the hearing on the amending Act 12 bills. But we are sort of in protest because these bills will not save Chester Water Authority, and we would prefer a complete repeal of Act 12 as a preferred solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment at this time? Hearing none, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.